I lay on the cold kitchen floor, clutching my abdomen as a wave of excruciating pain coursed through me, like a blade twisting within. Catherine, my young daughter, hovered nearby, her wide eyes filled with terror. "Mommy, are you okay?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. Despite the burning agony inside, I forced a reassuring smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just a bad stomach ache," I lied, trying to keep the fear out of my voice. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Willie, my husband, appeared in the doorway, his face framed by impatience more than concern. His suitcase was packed, ready for his trip. "What's going on, Amy? Why are you on the floor?" he asked, his voice lacking any real urgency. "I think it's appendicitis, Willie," I gasped, the pain tightening its grip on me. "It's bad, we need to go to the hospital." He waved it off with a dismissive scoff. "Appendicitis? You're probably overreacting, it's just indigestion." I opened my mouth to argue, but another sharp wave of pain stole my words. He glanced at his watch, clearly irritated. "I can't miss this trip with Carol, just take a taxi or something," he suggested, shrugging off my distress. I felt my disbelief rise, my voice cracking as I tried once more. "Willie, I can't even move. Catherine's here, I need you," I pleaded, my chest tightening with panic. He shook his head, unfazed. "If it gets worse, call me, but right now, I'm going," and with that, he left, suitcase in tow, leaving me writhing on the floor. Oscillaida, pain seizing my body. Catherine was my only comfort, her tiny hands found mine, her face streaked with tears. "Mommy, please don't be sick, you have to be okay," she sobbed, her voice breaking. With the last of my strength, I pulled her close. "I'm here, darling, Mommy's here." Once Willie was gone, a sense of urgency gripped me. Trembling, I reached for my phone and dialed the one person I knew would come, my brother, Russell. The phone rang, each second stretching in painful silence. "Hello?" His voice, warm and familiar, was like a lifeline. "Russell, it's Amy, I need help. I think it's appendicitis," I said, the words coming out in gasps. "I can't move." Catherine's scared. There was a pause, then Russell's calm voice broke through. "I'm on my way, Amy, stay calm. I'll be there soon." I closed my eyes, trying to bear the relentless pain. Catherine stayed close, her small frame offering the faintest comfort amidst the chaos. As the pain racked through me, one thing became clear: Willie's indifference wasn't just a disappointment, it was a betrayal. Our relationship had shifted, and I knew nothing would be the same again. When I was finally at the hospital, surrounded by the sterile walls and the beeping of machines, a quiet peace washed over me. The surgery had been successful, but the emotional wound inflicted by Willie's neglect remained. I'd called my parents to care for Catherine while I recovered. Their concern was palpable, and their unspoken questions about Willie's absence hung heavy in the air. 2 days later, I returned home, the physical pain now a dull ache, a faint reminder of the ordeal. Catherine's face lit up at the sight of me, her joy a welcome comfort. "Mommy, you're back, are you all better now?" she asked, her voice full of hope. "I'm getting there, sweetie," I replied, hugging her tightly, grateful for her warmth. But the peace was short-lived. The next day, the front door slammed open. Willie and his sister, Carol, marched in, frustration written across their faces. "Why didn't you pick us up yesterday? We had to pay extra for a taxi and train fares." Willie's voice was harsh, his annoyance clearly aimed at me. I felt a rush of anger bubble up inside. "Well, welcome back. It must have been quite the trip," I said coldly, my tone laced with sarcasm. Willie stopped in his tracks, taken aback by my frostiness. Even Carol looked surprised by the tension that filled the room. "What's with the attitude, Amy?" Willie demanded, his voice sharp. I couldn't hold it in any longer. "While you were off enjoying your trip, I was in the hospital," I said, my gaze unwavering as I looked at both him and Carol, whose constant demands seemed to take priority over anything else. Willie blinked, genuinely confused. "What are you talking about? You're fine now, right?" "It's not just about being fine, Willie," I shot back, the frustration rising in my chest. "It's about being there when your family needs you." Before Willie could muster a response, the door swung open, and in walked Russell, our parents, and Willie's parents, their eyes fixed on him with varying shades of anger and disappointment. Willie's voice trembled as he asked, "Why is everyone here?" His usual air of confidence evaporated under their collective gaze. I took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of strength to voice the hurt I'd been carrying. "Willie, you left Catherine and me when we needed you the most. I was in the hospital, and you weren't there." I laid everything bare for our families to hear. Willie, usually so self-assured, seemed to shrink before their eyes. His gaze darted from one face to another, looking for a shred of support, but found none. "It's not just about today, Willie," Russell's voice rang out, heavy with disappointment. "It's about all the times you've chosen Carol over your own family." Carol, who typically exuded confidence, now appeared uncomfortable, her eyes shifting uneasily between the floor and the others. Willie fumbled for words. grasping at excuses and justifications, but they rang hollow in the tense silence of the room. For me, it was a turning point. I realized, in that moment, that I couldn't continue living under the shadow of Willie's neglect. It was time to make a change, time to stand up for myself, and for Catherine. The meeting ended without resolution, but for me, it marked the beginning of something new. I no longer felt invisible, the support of our families was clear, and Willie's usual bravado had crumbled under their scrutiny. As they left, Willie's parents exchanged sympathetic glances with me, silent acknowledgments of their son's shortcomings. That night, as I lay in bed, the events of the day replayed in my mind. Anger, disappointment, and a surprising sense of empowerment swirled within me. Willie's true character had been laid bare. I realized it was time to take control of my life. The days that followed were tense. The house was filled with unspoken words and strained silences. Willie tried to return to normal, but the atmosphere between us was thick with unresolved tension. I began reflecting on my unhappiness, realizing how much I had been suffocating in this relationship. The decision I was approaching wasn't easy, but it felt necessary, like drawing in a deep breath after years of holding my breath. One evening, as Willie lazily flicked through TV channels, I approached him, a folder in my hands. My heart was pounding, but my resolve was unwavering. "Willie, we need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm. He glanced up, irritation clouding his features. "What now, Amy?" I took a steadying breath and handed him the folder. "I want a divorce," I said, the words finally leaving my lips. Willie's eyes widened in disbelief, followed by a sneer of scorn. "Divorce? You're being dramatic, Amy. This is ridiculous," he retorted. I shook my head, feeling an empowering clarity surge within me. "It's not drama, Willie. I've thought long and hard about this. You've put Carol before me and Catherine for too long. I can't live like this anymore." Willie sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "I think you can manage on your own? Don't be naive, Amy." His words cut through the room like a knife, meant to wound, but I stood firm, unshaken. "I'm not naive, Willie. I know what this means, but I'd rather face the unknown than keep feeling invisible in my own marriage." He let out a cold laugh, the sound bitter and hollow, hanging in the air. "Good luck, Amy. You'll regret this when you realize how tough it is out there." His dismissive attitude only hardened my resolve. I felt the anger rise, not just at his words, but at the years I had spent sidelined, ignored. This moment, despite the fear and uncertainty it brought, marked the beginning of something new, a step toward reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my worth. "I'm making my decision, and I'm sticking to it," I said, my voice unwavering. For a moment, it seemed like Willie might argue further, but instead, he just shrugged, a smirk forming on his face. "Fine, have it your way, but remember, I warned you," he said dismissively, turning back to the TV, as if I hadn't just shattered the silence between us. Amid the whirlwind of emotions, fear, anger, a deep, gnawing sadness, one feeling was overpowering: liberation. I was finally taking charge of my life, stepping into a future that was mine to shape. The next day, I began the legal process for divorce. The paperwork was overwhelming, the procedures daunting, but my determination never wavered. My parents, along with Russell, provided invaluable support, offering words of encouragement and practical help as I navigated the complexities of the process. Willie, however, showed his true colors: dismissive, uncooperative, and attempting to intimidate me into submission. But I stood my ground, bolstered by the unwavering support of my family and the growing strength within myself. As time passed, the cracks in Willie's facade deepened. The charming, confident man I had once married was now revealed as selfish, manipulative, and incapable of true empathy. The divorce proceedings were exhausting, but each step forward felt like a small victory. I was no longer the woman who had once felt invisible on that kitchen floor. I was taking back my life, my voice, and my happiness. Throughout the process, Willie's attempts to undermine me intensified. In our meetings, he would sneer, making derisive comments about my parenting and my future without him. But every insult he hurled only fueled my determination to break free from his toxic influence. "Enjoy your struggles, Amy," Willie taunted during one of our final meetings. "You'll soon see how good you had it with me." His arrogance was maddening, but I met his words with a quiet strength. I'd rather face challenges every day than spend another minute with someone who has so little regard for his family, I replied firmly, my voice steady. For a brief moment, Willie's smug demeanor faltered, replaced by a flash of anger, but he quickly masked it with a scoff, his usual arrogance reasserting itself. I could see, though, that my words had struck a nerve. I wasn't backing down. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. Finally, I was free from Willie, but the road ahead still felt uncertain. However, as I stepped out of the courthouse, a wave of liberation washed over me. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe again. In the weeks that followed, Willie's life began to unravel. His neglectful behavior during our marriage and the news of our separation became the talk of his workplace. Those who had once admired him now looked at him with pity. their respect for him eroding as they saw the selfishness that had always been lurking beneath his charm. The news of our divorce spread quickly through our community, and thanks to my well-connected cousin, Willie's image, so carefully curated, was now tarnished. He found himself the subject of whispered conversations and judgmental glances. Carol, too, wasn't spared. Her involvement in our marital issues became public knowledge, and friends and neighbors began to view her with suspicion. The once solid bond she shared with Willie now seemed strained, their unity nothing more than a facade that had finally crumbled. One evening, as I picked Catherine up from school, I overheard a heated argument between Willie and Carol outside their house. Their voices were sharp, laden with blame and resentment. "It's your fault we're in this mess," Carol shouted, her voice full of frustration. "How dare you blame me?" Willie retorted angrily. "You're the one who couldn't keep your family together." Their public quarrel was a stark contrast to the unity they had once presented. The fallout from their selfishness was in full view now, and they were facing the consequences of their actions. As I walked away with Catherine, a sense of vindication filled me. Willie and Carol were now living in the aftermath of their choices, harsh, but deserved. That night, as Catherine slept peacefully, I found myself standing by the window, reflecting on the months of turmoil that had led me here. The journey had been painful and difficult, but it had brought me to a place of strength, a place where I could finally stand tall and feel proud of the choices I had made. I had fought for my dignity, for Catherine's future, and for my own happiness. Though the road ahead was still uncertain, I felt ready to face it with the confidence that I was no longer bound by fear or regret. After the divorce, life began to fall into a quieter, more fulfilling rhythm. The weight of my unhappy marriage was finally lifted, replaced by an unexpected freedom. I could breathe again, and for the first time in years, I felt the space to rebuild my life, one step at a time, with Catherine by my side. Securing a job became my top priority. The gap in my resume, a result of years spent focused on motherhood, was a concern, but I knew I had the strength to overcome it. After a few interviews, I landed a role at a small accounting firm. It was a place led by a compassionate woman who understood the balancing act of work and motherhood. The firm offered flexibility, a supportive environment, and the chance to prove myself in a way I hadn't been able to for years. It was everything I needed. Catherine adjusted to our new life with a resilience that only a child could possess. She thrived in kindergarten, making new friends and throwing herself into her studies with enthusiasm. Her laughter and endless curiosity filled our home with warmth and light, a welcome contrast to the heavy silence that had once dominated our days. But despite the positive changes, remnants of my past with Willie still lingered. One afternoon, as I dropped Catherine off at school, I overheard a group of parents gossiping. "That's her, Amy. Her husband left her because he couldn't stand being around her anymore," one of them whispered. The words stung, but I held my head high. They were small whispers in the grand scheme of things. I had my freedom now, and that was more valuable than their judgment. Meanwhile, Willie's life was unraveling. His pride was shattered, and his once admired reputation now lay in tatters. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that he had moved back in with his parents, something he desperately tried to keep hidden. This news, while painful, served as a reminder that I was moving forward while he was stuck in his own mess. I had built a new life, and it was filled with possibilities. The truth about Willie's situation eventually spread, and Carol's life wasn't faring much better. Her role in the breakdown of our marriage had caused a rift between her and many of her friends. The bond she had once shared with Willie was now reduced to a strained silence, their relationship fractured by guilt and regret. As for me, I found strength in the unwavering support of my family. Russell had moved closer to us, providing a steady source of reassurance. My parents showered Catherine with love, helping her heal from the scars of our past. Their presence made all the difference, reminding me that I was never alone in this journey. One quiet morning, as I sipped coffee in the kitchen, I reflected on everything I had endured, the pain, the struggle, and the eventual liberation. It had all brought me to this peaceful moment. I hadn't just survived, I had grown stronger, more confident in who I was, and more certain of the path ahead. My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the doorbell. When I opened it, I found Willie standing there, his posture slumped, his face drawn with defeat. "Amy, I'm sorry," he said, his voice filled with regret. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. His apology, though long overdue, carried no weight for me. It was a gesture, but it didn't change anything. "Thank you, Willie," I said softly, looking him in the eye, "but it's too late, I've moved on." I closed the door behind him, and as it clicked shut, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure. That chapter of my life was over. What came next was mine to write. From the living room, I heard Catherine's voice calling my name. A smile spread across my face as I walked toward her. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was mine to shape, filled with hope, possibilities, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.